Ain't nobody gonna stop me. You see anybody moving? His hand was locked around her throat, knuckles digging in, voice low and cruel. The lab was full. Students frozen at their stations, staring, pretending not to see. No one moved, no one spoke. Except her, Madeline. The black teacher he'd mocked all semester. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just looked him dead in the eye and said, 6 hours earlier, the halls of Westlake High smelled like pencil shavings and peppermint gum. Lockers slammed. Sneakers squeaked. Teachers gave warnings no one listened to. It was just another Thursday. For most. Sean Hodges adjusted the straps on his backpack and stepped into the stream of bodies moving through the corridor. He moved like someone who knew exactly where he belonged. Not at the top, but never at the bottom. People liked him, trusted him. But no one ever expected him to speak up. He never had, not when it mattered. Across campus, Madeline Jackson, known as Miss Jackson to the students who feared her and Miss Madeline to the staff who respected her, unlocked the chemistry lab with quiet precision. Her morning routine never changed. Check the supply cabinet, wipe the counters, align every beaker, Bunsen burner and flask to military straightness. She never explained why she wore long sleeves, even in spring. She never made small talk in the teacher's lounge, and she never ever raised her voice. But when Madeline entered a room, something shifted. People sat straighter. Conversations died down, and even the loudest boys seemed to behave. That didn't sit right with Jordan Brewer. Jordan walked the halls like he was untouchable, because he was. Varsity athlete, wealthy family. His dad was on the school board. The rules bent for him. Sometimes they broke. He hated that Madeline didn't bend. She didn't flinch when he talked back. Didn't smile when he smirked. Didn't care about the name Brewer. And that made him feel something he wasn't used to. Small. That morning, during second period chemistry, the lab buzzed with quiet chatter and the hiss of gas valves. Madeline moved between workstations, monitoring a basic heat and react experiment. Safety goggles on, lab coats buttoned. Sean sat in the second row, partnered with a quiet kid named Tyler, who did most of the work. Sean didn't mind, he liked to watch. That's when Jordan walked in, late, as usual. No pass, no apology. He dropped into his seat in the back like a king reclaiming his throne. Madeline didn't stop the lesson, didn't even acknowledge him. Just clicked her pen and continued the demonstration. And that's when the spark lit. Jordan leaned back in his chair, loud enough for half the class to hear. Funny how the help gets to act like the boss. A few students looked up, half smiling, half nervous. Sean didn't laugh. He just looked at her. Madeline didn't blink, didn't pause. She simply turned to Jordan and said, "Let me know when you've finished observing gravity. I'd hate for it to catch you off guard." The class snickered. That's when Sean saw it. That twitch in Jordan's jaw, that split-second flicker of something ugly. The rest of the class moved on, but Jordan didn't. He stared at Madeline's back like he was waiting for something, planning something. And Sean said nothing. Lunch passed, classes changed. The building emptied out in waves. But in the chemistry lab, Madeline stayed behind, cleaning, logging grades, resetting the stations. She preferred the quiet, preferred being alone, except that day. She wasn't. From the hallway, Sean saw Jordan and 2 of his boys slip back into the room. No excuse, no pass. Just walked in like they owned it. Sean paused by the vending machine, eyes narrowing. He could see just enough to know something was off. He wasn't the only one who noticed. A few others slowed down, but no one went in. No one wanted to get involved. Inside, Jordan cornered her by the counter. He was saying something, low, pointed. Madeline didn't move. She just looked up at him like she'd seen that face before, 1,000 times. Then he stepped closer, closer, and that's when it happened. "Ain't nobody gonna stop me. You see anybody moving?" His hand locked around her throat. Pressure, intent. The lab wasn't empty. Students froze, too scared to intervene, too shocked to speak. Jordan grinned. Madeline didn't break eye contact. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just looked him dead in the eye and said, "Make sure you don't blink. You won't want to miss what happens next." The silence in the lab wasn't normal. It wasn't the kind of silence that came from discipline or respect. This was the kind of silence that made time slow down. That made your heartbeat sound louder than your breath. Jordan's hand was still locked around Madeline's throat, squeezing, testing her limits. And Madeline was still staring at him, not scared, not shaking, just still, like she was watching a child throw a tantrum with a loaded weapon. Behind them, one of Jordan's friends, Derek, shifted uneasily. His laugh from earlier had faded. He was starting to wonder if this had gone too far. But no one stepped in. Sean stood just outside the door, half hidden by the hallway wall. He could see it all, and he did nothing. "You like being the tough one, huh?" Jordan sneered, breath hot on her face. "You walk around like you're better than us, like you're in control." His grip tightened. "I could end your whole career in 5 seconds, and nobody would say a damn thing. You think anyone's going to defend you? You're just some angry black woman with a chip on her shoulder. That's all you are." Madeline's voice came low, measured, like each word was placed with care. "You're mistaking patience for permission." Jordan blinked. Just once. Big mistake. In one fluid movement, Madeline's right hand shot up, fast, precise, grabbing his wrist and rotating it outward with so much force it cracked. Jordan gasped, loud. The grip on her throat vanished instantly as he stumbled back, clutching his arm. But he didn't make it far, because Madeline wasn't finished. She stepped forward, 2 calculated strides, grabbed the front of his hoodie, twisted his body with military leverage and slammed him face first onto the counter with a thud that echoed like a gunshot. A few students screamed. Derek backed away. Someone dropped their phone. Sean's heart stopped. Not because of the violence, but because of the way she moved. Like this wasn't her first time. Like this was a language she knew fluently. Jordan tried to push off the counter, but her arm was already across his shoulders, pinning him down. Her voice never rose. "In this classroom, science rules, discipline rules, and I won't be bullied by a boy pretending to be a man." Jordan hissed. "You're dead. You're fired. My dad'll—" "Call him," she cut in. "Tell him you put your hands on a decorated combat veteran in front of witnesses. Tell him how I showed restraint." More silence. Now the students weren't just frozen. They were stunned. Sean felt something he hadn't expected. Respect. Jordan thrashed, trying to push up again. Madeline leaned down, speaking into his ear. "If you ever lay hands on another woman like that, I won't stop at restraint. And no last name in the world will protect you." She released him. Jordan collapsed to the floor, humiliated, disoriented, face red and trembling with rage. He looked up, expecting to see fear, panic, desperation. But Madeline was already adjusting her sleeves, calm and collected, like she'd just taken out the trash. Then she turned to the class. "Anyone else have trouble with authority today?" Not a single voice replied. Not a single eye met hers. Sean stayed rooted in place. His palms were sweating, his mouth dry. But his heart was thudding for a different reason now. He'd seen Jordan bully dozens of people, but never like this, never this bold, never this reckless. And no one had ever stood up to him. Madeline glanced down at Jordan one last time, her voice low but clear. Class dismissed. One by one, students started packing up, slowly, carefully. Jordan didn't move. Sean watched him stay crumpled on the floor, his entire sense of power bleeding out like air from a flat tire. Back in the hallway, the whispers started like sparks. "Did you see what she did? She broke his grip like it was nothing. She used to be a soldier or something, right? No way she's just a teacher." The school hadn't seen anything like it, but Sean wasn't whispering. He was still standing at the vending machine, heart pounding, because in that moment he realized something painful. He had the chance to step in, and he didn't. And for those of you watching this and thinking, what would I have done if I were there? Let me ask you, would you have spoken up, or stayed silent like everyone else in that lab? Be honest. Drop your answer in the comments. You might not like it, but sometimes the truth says more about us than we're ready to admit. The next morning, Westlake High felt colder, not physically, socially. The kind of cold that creeps down locker rows and silences conversations as soon as someone walks by. And that someone was Madeline Jackson. She walked through the front entrance exactly at 7:02 a.m., same as every day. Same coffee, same pressed slacks, same tight bun. But the air around her was different now, charged, electric. Students stepped aside without thinking. Teachers lowered their voices. Even the assistant principal gave her a tight, unsure nod, then walked the other way. The news had spread like wildfire. Jordan Brewer got folded like origami in front of 20 witnesses by a chemistry teacher. No one could believe it, and yet no one could deny what they saw. Jordan didn't show up to school that day. The nurse's office said he was under observation. The halls said he was humiliated. But his father wasn't going to let this slide. By noon, Madeline was summoned to the main office. Waiting inside, Principal Monroe, Vice Principal Adler, and a man in a pressed grey suit with the kind of haircut that said, "I bill by the hour." "Miss Jackson, please sit." She didn't. She stood, arms crossed, calm. "You're aware a formal complaint has been filed against you by Mr. Ronald Brewer on behalf of his son." She said nothing. The lawyer adjusted his tie, placing a manila folder on the desk. "We have an allegation of excessive force against a minor. Witnesses say you assaulted a student." Her jaw didn't tighten, her eyes didn't narrow. She just said, "Do the witnesses also say he had me by the throat?" Silence. "Because if they don't," she continued, "you're not reading witness statements, you're reading spin." Principal Monroe shifted uncomfortably. "Madeline, we're trying to de-escalate the situation. Perhaps a leave of absence." "No." Simple, sharp. "I was attacked in front of my students. I de-escalated it the way I've been trained to, non-lethally, without harm beyond correction. That boy is lucky all he left with was a sore wrist and a bruised ego." The lawyer leaned forward. "Are you admitting you used military combat techniques?" She finally sat. "I'm admitting I used restraint. Back in the cafeteria, more than I was given." Sean sat alone for the first time in months. His usual table, Jordan's circle, was split. Some guys were laying low, others were pretending it hadn't happened. But Sean was thinking, replaying the moment over and over in his head. Not the takedown, not the silence after, the moment before, when he stood in the hallway, when he saw it happening and chose not to move. Later that day, he saw her again, in the faculty parking lot, carrying a box of files to her car. She looked not tired, not broken, but distant, like she'd already accepted whatever the world decided to throw at her next. He jogged up behind her, awkward. "Miss Jackson, sorry, Madeline." She didn't stop walking. "You were incredible. I mean, that was insane. Like movie level." She turned, sharp. "Don't turn me into a movie, Sean." He blinked. "What?" What happened in that room wasn't entertainment. It was survival, and everyone watching just watched. The silence hit harder than her words. Sean looked down. "I wanted to help, You didn't." Another pause. "That's not judgment, that's just fact." She opened the trunk and set the box down. "But if you're trying to make yourself feel better, don't. I'm not the one you owe anything to." She shut the trunk and walked away. In her classroom that afternoon, Madeline sat alone at her desk, watching the hallway clock. 4 minutes until the bell. On her screen, a news headline flashed across the school board site. "Teacher under investigation after alleged assault on student." No name, but it didn't need one. Everyone knew who it was. She sighed and closed the tab. It wasn't the threat of being fired that bothered her. It was the knowledge that in a building full of witnesses, not one person stood up for what they knew was right. That night, Sean couldn't sleep. His mother knocked once, then cracked the door. "You all right, baby?" He nodded, lying. She stepped in, sat on the edge of his bed, held up his phone. "I read what happened at school. About your teacher." He stayed quiet. "I know that look. Your father had it after Ferguson, and after George Floyd." Sean looked up. What look? The look of someone who finally realizes silence is a choice. She stood to leave, then paused. You don't have to fix it, but you can't ignore it either. And somewhere, a screen lit up in Ronald Brewer's office. He'd just opened a file. Termination protocol, teacher misconduct. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Detention wasn't supposed to feel like a setup, but for Sean Hodges, sitting in the back of the near-empty chemistry lab with a mop, a bucket, and no real reason to be there, it felt personal. He wasn't even the one who'd caused the mess. But when Mr. Adler called him into the office that morning and said, "You need to learn the importance of responsibility and leadership, Sean," it was clear what this really was. Guilt wrapped in bureaucracy. Madeline entered the room with a clipboard and a silence that didn't invite small talk. She was dressed sharp, as always, navy blouse, long sleeves, slacks pressed. But her eyes were different, not cold, just walled off. "You're here for cleanup duty?" she asked without looking up. Sean nodded. "Apparently." She marked something on her sheet. "The floor's yours." She didn't say another word. For 20 minutes, the only sounds were the soft squeak of the mop across the tile, the faint hum of the ceiling lights, and the occasional scrape of her pen as she graded lab reports. Sean wanted to say something. Anything. But every sentence he rehearsed in his head sounded weak. "Sorry I didn't say anything. You were amazing. Jordan's a monster." None of it felt like enough. Finally, he broke. "Do you ever get tired of being strong all the time?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Madeline paused, set her pen down, turned toward him. "Who says I'm strong?" Sean hesitated. "What you did. I mean, it was necessary," she finished for him. She walked around the desk, leaned against the edge, arms crossed. "You think strength looks like what happened yesterday?" Sean shrugged. "I think it looks like not flinching when everyone else does." She studied him. Hard. "Flinching is human, Sean. It's not the flinch that defines you, it's what you do after." He looked down at the mop, at his sneakers, at the floor he'd cleaned 3 times already. "I wanted to step in. I froze." "So did everyone else," she said. "But I don't want to be like everyone else," he replied. "Not anymore." That made her pause. For real. Something softened, just a little. She took a deep breath. "You ever heard of Fort Benning?" Sean shook his head. "It's where I learned how to disarm someone twice my size, how to breathe through a chokehold, how to keep my head when a boy with a gun is shouting in a language I don't understand." She looked up at the ceiling for a moment. "But they don't teach you how to come back. They don't teach you how to be normal again. So you hide behind syllabi and seating charts and polite emails to parents who think their kids walk on water." Sean was silent. "They didn't tell me how to stand in a classroom full of kids who'd rather record a fight than stop one." Now he looked up. "We're not all like that." She held his gaze. "Then prove it." They didn't speak much after that. But something had shifted. Not friendship, not trust, mutual understanding. Like 2 people standing on opposite cliffs finally waving across the gap. The next day, Sean showed up again after school. This time, not because he was assigned, because he wanted to. She didn't ask why, he didn't explain. He just grabbed a towel and started wiping down the counters. In the hallway, students whispered louder now. The silence around Madeleine was breaking, not with cheers, but with curiosity. "Did you hear she used to be a soldier? She's got combat training, like military for real." Why would someone like that become a teacher? The question wasn't meant to be insulting, but it landed like one. Sean heard it too, in the cafeteria, in gym, in the locker room, and for the first time in his life, he didn't let it slide. "Why would she become a teacher?" someone asked at lunch. Sean stood. Maybe because the battlefield just moved. The table went quiet. Someone chuckled, but no one pushed back. Not this time. Meanwhile, Jordan was back on campus, arm still bandaged, ego still shattered. He walked past students with a look that had changed, not softer, darker, more calculating. And when he passed the chemistry lab, and saw Sean inside, cleaning alongside Madeline, he didn't say a word. He just smirked, like he already had a plan. The past doesn't always knock. Sometimes it breaks in through the back door. For Sean, it came in the form of a link. A classmate, Jasmine, slid into his DMs that morning with 4 words. This her military record. Attached was a grainy article. Sergeant Madeline Jackson awarded Bronze Star for bravery under fire. The photo showed her in uniform, buzzed hair, no makeup, half smiling under dust and desert light. Sean clicked it before he could stop himself. And what he read changed everything. 2 deployments, 1 hostage rescue, 15 confirmed saves under direct fire, and 1 line that stopped him cold. Jackson refused evacuation after being shot, returning to her unit to shield civilians trapped inside the village. He stared at the screen. The woman who broke Jordan Brewer like a twig once walked through fire to save strangers with bullets flying overhead. After school, Sean didn't wait for permission this time. He knocked on the lab door. Madeline looked up from her desk, guarded. "Sean." He stepped in slowly, holding his phone like evidence. "I didn't go looking for it. It found me." She didn't ask what. He showed her anyway. Her face didn't change. Not much. Just a long exhale, like air leaving a balloon that had been full for years. She reached for the phone, scrolled once, then set it down carefully. "I didn't want this part of me in here." Sean was quiet, but the silence didn't feel like a wall anymore. "Why chemistry?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Because reactions tell the truth. You can't fake a formula. Either it works or it blows up in your face." She looked past him, toward the windows. "After the army, I needed a place where I could still feel useful without needing to carry a gun." She hesitated. "I thought maybe if I poured everything I had into structure, into discipline, it'd quiet the noise." Sean sat in the chair across from her. "Did it?" She didn't answer right away. "Until last week, I thought maybe it had." Elsewhere on campus, Jordan Brewer was getting to work. But this time, not in front of an audience. He'd figured out the new dynamic now. Intimidation had failed, so it was time for sabotage. He waited until the last bell rang, then slipped into the lab during custodial rounds. He wore gloves. He moved fast. 1 small vial. A burner left barely on. A printed label slipped into Madeline's desk drawer. It wouldn't matter what it actually was. It would look bad. And in schools like this? Perception was punishment. The next morning, it happened. An anonymous tip to the admin office. A search. Madeline pulled from her class mid-period, and inside her desk drawer, a sealed plastic vial marked Controlled Substance, sulfadiazine, not illegal, but not school-approved, and definitely not part of that week's curriculum. The whispers didn't wait. "She's getting fired." She planted that to scare him. She really is crazy. In the hallway, Sean stood by the lockers, hands clenched. He knew it wasn't real. He knew her. And now, he realized he'd seen something days earlier. Jordan smirking outside the lab, glancing back once, confident. He hadn't understood it then, but he did now. That afternoon, the lab door was locked. Her name was off the schedule. Her classroom key deactivated. Sean sat in the parking lot long after the buses pulled away, fingers twitching on his phone screen. His chest felt tight, not with panic, with rage. She saved people. She served this country, and they still chose to believe a boy who's never known a single consequence. Sometimes, silence doesn't just make you complicit, it makes you responsible. And at this point in the story, if you're thinking, "She doesn't deserve this," you're right. But let's ask the harder question. Would you have spoken up? Or would you have waited until it was too late, like Sean? Be honest. Drop your answer in the comments. If this story feels unfair, that's because it is. The school felt different without her. Not louder, not messier, just emptier. The chemistry lab sat dark for the first time all semester. Blinds pulled, door locked, silence like a closed casket. And still, no one had said a word publicly. Not the school board, not Principal Monroe, not even Madeline herself. She was gone, just like that. Sean sat in the library with his laptop open, but he wasn't working. His screen was split, one half on a Word doc titled Appeal Letter, the other frozen on a paused video from the hallway security camera outside room 2B. He'd requested access under the guise of a media class project. What he'd found wasn't dramatic. No jump cuts or close-ups, just clear footage of Jordan walking into the lab. And 5 minutes later, Madeline being escorted out in cuffs. Sean didn't go home after school that day. He took the bus, 2 lines, 1 transfer, until he got off at a residential stretch of West Side Savannah, not the kind of neighborhood where kids from his side of town hung out. But she lived here, and he had something to say. He found her on the porch, hoodie on, sleeves rolled up, a mug of coffee in her hand, even though the Georgia heat was thick enough to taste. Madeline didn't look surprised to see him. "You lost?" Sean shook his head. "I saw the footage." She looked out at the street. "And?" "It doesn't show anything." "Exactly." He sat on the porch steps. "It's not fair. Life isn't." She said it like a fact, not a complaint. "You could fight it," he said. She chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Do you know how many black women in America have to be perfect just to keep their jobs?" Sean said nothing. "Now imagine being one who knows how to break a wrist in under 4 seconds. The silence settled between them again. "I'm trying," Sean finally said, "to be better than I was that day." Madeline looked at him, soft now. "You don't need to prove anything to me, Sean." He swallowed, then said something that surprised even himself. "I don't want to be one of those people who only learns courage after someone else bleeds for it." She raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like something your mama told you." He smiled. "She did." She took a sip from her mug. "You know, I became a teacher because I thought maybe I could protect kids in a different way. Not from bullets, but from themselves, from ignorance, from repeating the same cycles." She looked at him. Not a student, not a stranger, just another human being trying to get it right. Turns out that battlefield's even harder. They sat there a while longer, porch creaking beneath them. No words, just air, just time. And in that space something shifted. Not forgiveness, not healing, but a kind of beginning. A fragile thread of real connection, knotted in truth, pulled tight by everything they'd seen and felt, but hadn't said. The next morning, Sean didn't wait. He walked into the admin office with a flash drive and a printed letter addressed to the district superintendent. Inside that letter, witness statements, the hallway footage, a timeline of the frame job, and a quiet, firm request to reinstate Miss Madeline Jackson. He didn't ask for credit, didn't make a speech. He just handed it to Principal Monroe and said, "You know what the right thing is." Outside, a few students watched him leave the office. This time they didn't whisper, didn't laugh. One of them nodded, another followed him. Within 24 hours, 5 more submitted letters, then 20. A quiet wave of support built in secret. Not because they were told to, but because someone finally went first. And across town, Madeline sat in her living room. She hadn't unpacked her box from school. Her finger hovered over a job application for a night security gig, but then her phone buzzed, 1 message, 1 line. "They're listening now." At this point, if you've ever watched someone stand up when they didn't have to, just to do what was right, you already know how rare it is. But here's the question. Would you be the first to speak? Or would you wait for someone else to risk it first? If you've ever been in that moment, share it below, because silence protects no one. The morning she returned, no one clapped, no one cheered, but every hallway watched. Madeline walked through the front doors of Westlake High at 7:03 a.m., a minute later than usual, not out of hesitation, just to let them know she chose to come back. Her clearance had come late the night before. No press release, no apology, just a quiet message from the district office. "You are reinstated." She didn't smile. Effective immediately. Didn't exhale. She just walked, past the staring teachers, past the silent students, right into the chemistry lab. Sean stood waiting. He didn't say anything, didn't have to. She nodded once. It was enough, but not everyone was relieved. In the admin office, Ronald Brewer stared at the reinstatement email with clenched fists. He'd used every connection he had, made calls, threats, deals, and somehow, she was still standing. He wasn't just angry, he was embarrassed. And Jordan? Jordan had shifted from humiliated to bitter. The whispers had started catching up to him too. Even some of his closest friends had started distancing themselves. Sean had spoken up. Others had followed. Now Jordan walked through the halls like a dog with a leash made of money and fear, snapping but no longer respected. He wasn't done yet. 3 days after Madeline returned, someone broke into her car in the school lot. Nothing stolen. But her military discharge papers, the ones she kept locked in the glove box, were torn up and left on the front seat. She reported it. No cameras had caught it. The school promised an internal review. Madeline said nothing, but the look in her eyes changed, and then it happened. A photo, printed in black and white, taped to every boy's bathroom stall by the next morning. Madeline in uniform, mid-mission. In the background, a charred building. A bloodied man in restraints. Captioned, "This is who's teaching your kids." The image was old, twisted out of context, but powerful, scary, enough to reignite every rumor. The principal called her in again. "Madeline, it's not about guilt or innocence, it's about perception." She stared at him. "Perception got me nearly strangled in front of your students." He looked away. "We can't protect you if this escalates." "You never did." That night, Sean received a DM from a fake account. No words, just the same photo. He stared at it, then went to her house. She opened the door, saw his face, and already knew. Inside she paced, silent, controlled. But Sean could see the cracks this time. She wasn't breaking, she was bending. And eventually, even steel bends too far. "I should have left the first time," she said quietly. "They don't want teachers like me. They want placeholders, someone they can control." Sean's voice cracked. "Then let them see what happens when someone like you fights back." She turned to him, eyes rimmed in red, not from tears, but exhaustion. "Fighting's easy. It's staying human after the fight that's hard." Sean stepped closer. "Then let me fight beside you." She shook her head. Not in rejection, but grief. "You're just a kid, Sean." "Not anymore." But then she said something that cut deeper than any accusation. "I don't want to care what happens here anymore." He flinched, not because she was angry, but because it was the first time she sounded like she'd given up. And just like that, the thread between them, the fragile connection they'd built, snapped. Not from betrayal, but from weariness. From too many days fighting a war no one acknowledged. Sean left her porch with clenched fists and no answers. Because when a storm tears everything down,
The school
even the
felt
good
heavy,
gets washed away, like something invisible had cracked in the walls. It wasn't about the headlines anymore, or the rumors, or even Jordan. It was about what came next. And no one, not even Madeline, seemed sure. She hadn't shown up for work that morning. No text, no email, no excuse. Her name was still on the sublist, but her room stayed dark. Her chair empty. Her silence louder than anything else. Sean stood outside her classroom at lunch, staring at the closed door like it might answer him. But it didn't. That night he sat at his desk at home, rereading the letter he'd sent to the superintendent weeks ago. His words looked weaker now. Too polite. Too late. He opened a new tab, started typing again. This time not for the board, for everyone. The post went live at 10:47 p.m. A photo of Madeline in uniform, the original one, not the one twisted for fear, followed by another, her teaching, sleeves rolled down, posture firm, eyes steady, and the caption, "This is who taught me to find my voice when I'd spent my life staying silent." He didn't name Jordan, didn't mention the fight. He didn't have to. The post spoke for itself. Within an hour it had 300 shares by morning 2000. The comments weren't all kind, but most of them were real. She made me believe I could pass chemistry. She gave my daughter extra help after school when no one else would. She showed me what quiet strength looks like, By sunrise, the story had left Savannah. A national blog reposted it. Then a local station picked it up. Then the school board's inbox exploded. Sean didn't check his notifications that day. He got dressed, ate toast in silence, and took the long route to school. But Madeline wasn't in class again. Still no sign, no email, no word. At 10:30 a.m., Sean asked to go to the nurse. He didn't. He walked out the front door of the school, across the lot, down the street, caught the 42 bus again. This time, when he knocked on her door, she didn't answer, so he sat on her porch and waited. An hour passed, then another. He didn't check his phone, didn't fidget, just sat there. Until finally, the door creaked open, and there she was, hoodie, hair wrapped, tired eyes, no armor. "You're not giving up," he said. It wasn't a question. She didn't reply right away. Then she sat beside him. "I used to believe if I was strong enough, they'd see me differently. And now? Now I believe they'll see what they want, no matter what I do." Sean nodded. "Maybe, but some of us see you, the real you." She looked at him. "I'm not a hero, Sean." "Good. I wasn't looking for one. Just someone real." She looked away, then smiled. Not big, just enough. "So what do we do now?" "We go back," he said. "Together." She stood. "All right, but I'm not taking the bus." And that moment wasn't victory, but it was choice. And sometimes, choice is the hardest part. Madeline walked back into Westlake High at exactly 7 a.m. Not a minute early, not a second late. She wore the same navy blouse, same slacks, but this time, no sleeves. Her forearm bore the faded scar of a bullet wound. She wasn't hiding anymore. Every eye in the front office turned as she passed. Every mouth paused. And for once, no one asked where she'd been. Sean stood outside room 2B. When he saw her, he smiled. Not wide, not smug, just real. "They put your name back on the door." She nodded. "Took them long enough." Inside the lab, students were already in their seats. Quiet, alert, some guilty, some inspired. But all watching. Madeline stepped to the front, set her bag on the desk, took a deep breath. "Before we get started today," she looked across the room, "there's something I need to say." No one moved. "Some of you think I'm here to teach chemistry. You're wrong. I'm here to teach reaction." She stepped closer to the whiteboard. "See, when pressure builds, you can either break or transform. That's true in science, and it's true in life." She turned to face them. "I didn't come here to prove I'm strong. I came to prove it's possible to stand back up, even when the world tries to keep you down." A long pause, not a breath in the room. She scanned the faces. "This isn't about me anymore. It's about what you'll do when it's your turn, because the truth is, the world is full of Jordans, but it only takes one person who refuses to look away to stop them." She looked toward Sean. A brief glance, no spotlight, no praise, just acknowledgement. Outside the lab, Principal Monroe stood by the door, watching, and for once, listening. In the days that followed, things didn't magically fix themselves. Jordan Brewer was removed from school quietly. Voluntary withdrawal, they called it. His father pulled some strings, got him into a private academy 2 counties over. No charges, no apology, just absence. But sometimes, that's enough. Madeline stayed, not because she had to, but because she chose to, and that changed everything. Students started showing up early, asking questions, staying after class, not because she made them, because they wanted to. One Friday, Sean walked her to her car, still parked in the same spot, faded lines, cracked pavement, windows down. She unlocked the door, then turned to him. "You're not a follower anymore." Sean shrugged. "You're not just a teacher." They smiled. No fanfare, just truth. And then he said the thing that mattered most. "Thank you for not needing saving." She looked at him. Soft, steady. No one does. Not when they know who they are. As she drove off, windows down, wind catching the edge of her scarf, Sean watched her disappear around the curve. And he knew. His silence died the day she chose not to disappear. "So if you've made it this far, Tell me this. When someone around you is being broken down by hate, by fear, by silence, will you wait for someone else to speak? Or will you be the first voice they hear saying, "That's enough"? Because here's the truth. Heroes don't always save. Sometimes they just don't back down. And when the time comes for you to choose, I hope you don't blink.